Hello, nerds, and welcome to the Engadget Podcast. I am your host, Terrence O'Brien. I am also extraordinarily tired, but that is okay. Good morning, people.
Good morning.
To my right, managing editor, Dana Woolman.
Hi, Terrence.
Hi.
Hey.
Are you as awake as I am?
I'm the wakest.
You're the wakest?
Wakest of the wake.
Sorry.
Waking.
Well, I don't know what that means. I was clearly asleep when you said that.
Yeah.
Terrence, I think I figured out what your problem is, by the way.
What's that?
Your cup is full of water and not coffee.
Yeah.
Water bad.
Water is bad. I went over to get coffee, and the things were empty, the machine was broken, and I just went, ugh.
I did just fine.
Thanks,
by the way.
Obama.
It's literally over there.
By the way, that voice you hear is Chris
hi.
Velasco, senior editor.
Hey, guys. It's
you
been a
doing?
while since I've done this.
It's true.
I missed
Yeah.
you.
You have not been on in a while. We've missed you.
You've been off in California playing with Google devices that haven't come out yet.
Yes. Oh, and I want them, but I can't have them yet, which is just a source of tremendous frustration for me.
But
Terrence, you want one too, as a matter of fact.
I
Let's
do.
lay our cards out on the table.
I pre-ordered my Pixel XL. It should.
You're an XL man.
Yes, I am. Clearly.
Dana, you're giving me like a serious bit of a, not even side eye. It's just full on stink eye.
I'm not stinking anything. There were no thoughts up here.
Basically, what
Resting
we're trying
bitch
to say.
face is what I gave you.
Okay.
Yeah.
All three of our brains are basically completely shut down, is what you're saying, right? There's just nothing going on.
Well, we can't be
here.
low energy.
No. Very high energy. I am going to be moving around
yeah.
and talking really excitedly. Just listen to me. I am amped. I am into this. But there's no brain activity.
So
There.
a lot of sound, very little fury going on in there.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, well, that's rare, but let's see how this goes.
Yeah, let's start as we do every week with Flame Wars. You guys know how this works. We're going to debate the biggest news stories of the week. You get 20 seconds to make your opening arguments. I'll allow a brief rebuttal, and then I'm going to pick a winner. And I will preface this, as I have been recently, by reminding everyone that this is purely an intellectual exercise and is not necessarily reflective of our opinions. And also, we are coming up soon on CES, and we'll be doing something on stage for the winner and loser of Flame Wars. I haven't figured out quite what
Oh,
yet.
first I'm hearing.
Oh, yeah. No.
Oh, really?
Uh-oh.
We're gonna do a thing.
I think the reason I've avoided being on this show for so long is that my Flame Wars like win-lose ratio is very good.
Yeah.
And if I don't ever do the show, I can't lose.
That's fair.
It's just fear.
Yeah, I actually don't have the standings in front of me, but I think at this point we're seeing some clear runaway winner and losers on either end.
Welcome to hell, fiasco.
Thanks. Thanks. Glad to be here.
Yeah.
Glad I wore my grandpa sweater.
Your shawl.
My shawl. Yeah. I'm dressed for comfort today.
I actually kind of dig that sweater. I'm not gonna lie.
It actually also holds a lot of phones.
a lot of
of-
special.
I've got like
phone
8.
pockets
I've got
on
like
the
8.
inside.
And Rolex watches.
Oh yeah, that's on the inside. I don't talk
Yeah.
about that. That's not legal.
Yeah.
Different thing.
That's not okay.
But you'll sell me one later.
We'll talk.
Flame Wars.
Yeah. Let's do the show, guys.
Yeah.
The podcast, why we're here. Let's start with a little gadget love. Amazon released its Echo. It's one of these things that it's a Bluetooth speaker and it's got a virtual assistant thing called Alexa inside of it. And now there's this little guy, the Echo Dot, which is a less big speaker.
And it's the second generation Echo Dot, but now the price is pretty low. It's $50.
Yeah. So, well, my question to you, Dana, is should I buy the Dot or should I spring for the full-sized Echo?
Most people should really just get the Dot. I think this is an example of early adopters getting screwed over by paying the price of a first-generation product. Now, you have the same technology that you'd find in the Echo, and it's the same concept, but it's in a smaller, cheaper form factor.
Mr. Velasco?
Those are fair points. I grant you those points. There are a couple things to remember. First off, it has a speaker. Speaker ain't great. I'm also hearing that the speaker, Alexa, sort of has trouble hearing over the audio if you're using the Dot, just because there's less sort of space between the microphone and the speaker. So that can be tricky. It is helpful if...
Ha!
Wow. Is that how fast these things go?
Yeah, 20 seconds.
Wow, I've really not prepared for this thing well at all. Okay.
Dana, do you have any rebuttal?
Well, I didn't say that the Dot was the best pick for everyone. There might be some people who need the Echo's microphone capabilities, but I think for a whole lot of people out there, the Dot is going to do just fine.
If I might add, I think the bigger point to be made here is that no one should buy any of these things yet until we know if Google Home sucks or not. Like, it's going to be a couple more weeks. Like, Echo Dot starts shipping on October 20th. The Google Home, which is surprisingly impressive. Like, Assistant, I think we've played with in Allo a few times, is actually pretty good. And it does look like a Glade, like, home air freshener, which I just infinitely appreciate. So everyone should wait.
Part of what I'd say about Google Home is that what we do know is that it seems a little less capable in terms of all the Internet of Things type standards and products that it's compatible with.
If only because like Alexa and the Echo has had such a huge head start. But I think if you've used an Echo and like have just needed to know things, Alexa is generally a little less good at that. Like you'll ask her a question and she'll be like, "Well, I couldn't find the answer for you. I'm just going to stop talking to you now." And that's going to be, at least in my like limited experience with the Google Assistant and Google Home, that will be less of an issue.
So you're moving the goalpost a little bit, though.
I got to win somehow.
Not buy the Echo, but just don't buy the Dot.
Just wait. Just wait, guys. That's all I'm saying.
Says the guy who buys all the things.
Well, yes, but I'm terrible. And you're not. Like, all of you are genuinely good people. You listeners, like, don't be me. Just wait. I've made so many bad decisions.
This is true. We can vouch for this. I'm gonna go with Dana on this one.
Ooh.
Just because.
Damn.
At the end of the day, I gotta say I don't respect moving the goalpost, buddy. It's a weak move.
You know what? When you're
It's your unlucky shawl sweater.
I guess I should take it off. Should I?
No, you can.
No,
It looks
leave
cozy.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And it's
fine.
drafty in
Fine.
here.
All right. I'll be comfortable as I fail at this next one. Too.
Yeah. Well, I think this one will be a little bit easier of an argument for you to make.
We'll see.
We'll start with you this time. So I don't think it's much of a secret to anybody who pays attention to tech news at this point that Twitter is in a bit of an identity crisis and a little bit of trouble in terms of finances and everything else. And there's this real sort of war at this point over what Twitter is internally that's starting to kind of froth to the surface. And Jack Dorsey recently took issue with the idea of Twitter being a social network and described it instead as the people's news network. Chris, your thoughts?
I don't think there's a way to sort of separate that. I mean, if you're looking at it purely binarily, like news flies on Twitter, but people are definitely having normal conversations in the background. And I think if Jack Dorsey's position is that this is a purely sort of news service, then like look at Facebook and Reddit. Pew recently did a study that says more people get their news from both of those services than they do from Twitter. And that accounts for a larger swath of the U.S. population.
In just under the buzzer. Jeez, I can't talk. That's how exhausted I am. This is great, guys. We're having a real good time. This is only going to get better as we go along. Dana?
Right. So one thing I agree with V on is that Twitter really is both a news source and a social network. I think for a lot of people who don't have nearly as many followers as we do, a lot of them are just those eggheads with only a few followers. And for them, the main value of Twitter is going to be following news accounts and getting their news there. They're not going to be sending as many personal updates there as on Facebook.
It's pretty good. Mm-hmm. I appreciate that. Do you have any brief rebuttals, Chris?
I think for the average Twitter user who is fair to say is none of us. Like, sure, they'll be using it as a source for things, for news. Twitter sort of encourages that in the onboarding process. So obviously the focus inside the company is pretty clear. But I also think it's fair to say that people are having conversations, not always good ones. You'll see a lot of sort of debate and discord and a lot of weird stuff go on Twitter that simply isn't news.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a large part,
It's not news, it's a reaction to the news. Like, Twitter is basically a news wire plus a comment section, all in one.
Well, I think a lot of it sort of depends on what your definition of news is. Like, sure, if we publish a story or the New York Times publishes a story, sure, that has clear news value. But I think by virtue of where we are sort of as a culture. Like the line between personal like updates and things that are going on in your life and actual news, like that barrier is sort of murkier than it's ever been.
Is it?
I think so, which is kind of frightening to me. Like, I don't know, if a celebrity like tweets a thing, that sort of makes headlines. Obviously, that isn't going to be the case for everybody, but
I think it's precisely sort of famous or quasi-famous people in our case who can get away with those personal updates. I posted something about my marathon the other day, and that was a personal update, but I only did it knowing that there's a bunch of people out there crazy enough to follow me. I wouldn't do that if I were an egghead with 4 followers.
I mean, I guess that's fair. I don't know. I still have this weird sense in my head of Twitter being more about the social interaction thing and less about the news consumption part. But I also think the circles that I travel in tend to be slightly older and still use Twitter very much in that way. Like I follow a lot of people and a lot of my friends are the kind of people who like literally all they do is trade memes and jokes on Twitter. Like that's just like it.
And I mean, again, this is an intellectual exercise. I think one thing we actually all agree on is that for Jack Dorsey to describe his own product in such binary terms, it's not that helpful. It's not that constructive or accurate either.
yeah, but like you got to figure like, so basically this was taken from an all hands like company memo that he sort of put out after all of the news.
And that wasn't meant for us to see, probably.
Was not meant for the public to see. It also came out after all of the word of like people expressing interest in buying Twitter and then like that interest sort of cooling off pretty dramatically and pretty quickly. Like it was just a, hey guys, like we can do this kind of memo. And I think that's actually how the memo ended. Like, good job, we can do it, keep it up. Like just very rah. Like here's something to hang your hat on. Let's go to work.
And I mean, I'm arguing against myself now, but when he says People's News Network, that does sound like the kind of thing he probably said to himself and was like, oh, I like that.
Yeah. That's a good catchphrase.
I'm going to tell the team that.
Guys, I'm really smart.
Yeah.
Smart guy. Dana, I'm going to give this one to you, I think, again.
Damn.
Me?
Sorry.
I just argued against myself.
I know you did, but you made a very convincing argument to begin with. And I think there is validity to this idea that, Twitter is now more of a news consumption tool in many ways, at least for most people, or at least that's what they want to be, even if they're not succeeding. And from one social network in the midst of an identity crisis to another, let's move on to Facebook for our last debate of the week.
Yeah. This is a tough one.
Yeah.
No easy answers.
There are no easy answers here. So I guess not even a few months back. Was it a few months back? Yeah, it was a few months back. Facebook was accused of bias in the way it was promoting trending stories and favoring liberal media sources over conservative ones. We will put a link in the description for this so people can go back and read up on that if they hadn't. There is some validity to that claim, to be fair. Facebook's reaction to this, however, was not to try and address the shortcomings in their curation process and figure out how to tweak that approach, because it was primarily humans picking these stories, and went with a purely algorithmic approach. Now the Facebook trending stories is kind of awash in bullshit and fake news stories. And so the question for you guys is, should Facebook bring back the human curators even if it means they're going to have to face accusations of bias? Or is the surfacing of fake news stories just the bitter pill they're going to have to swallow in order to avoid facing those accusations?
And I think another question that we can ask is, let's say a fake news story is trending on Facebook. Is that Facebook's problem?
Yeah, I think that gets to the heart of it. So Dana, why don't you start?
So it was not easy for me to pick a side on this issue. I'm going to argue that, just for the sake of argument, that Facebook does need human curators, if only because Facebook in the past has positioned itself as a media company. And it indeed has relationships with news outlets, just like Engadget, among many others. So if that's the role it's chosen to play, then Facebook needs to exercise more responsibility.
Sorry, I know that seemed a little short,
No, I got a slow start.
Yeah, you got a little bit of a slow start.
Yeah.
Chris, your rebuttal.
Facebook, is undeniably a media company. I think one of the questions that they should consider is whether it should continue to look at itself as such. And this is a very strange viewpoint that I've taken for myself, but I kind of believe in Facebook as the mirror that we all need to see how flawed and toxic we can be.
You ended that at like just the right moment.
Yeah.
Dana, do you have a rebuttal there? Or additional thoughts? Because it was this is argue very difficult to get all of that out in 20 seconds.
I don't know if I understand V's argument.
So basically what I'm trying to say is I think if Facebook continues to look at itself as a media organization, yes, obviously it needs a human touch. The reason why we don't let algorithms write our stories is because they will always lack the context necessary. Maybe they will get better at it, but for now, the human level of discretion is sort of what's needed, I think, to present both sides of a story sort of accurately and fairly. What I think is going on algorithmically is that, yes, it does sort of take into account mostly just like what is popular, and a lot of that is wrong, but I guess what I'm trying to say is that there is value in that wrongness too. You can look at those things and say, well, okay, is that true? It is not most of the time, but it sort of forces you to understand what other people are sort of thinking about.
Because you feel superior when you realize that much of Facebook is talking about Mean Girls 12 years after it came out.
Is that true? Is that a thing?
There's a Mean Girls Day there's a certain day every October when it's Mean Girls Day. That's why.
I think it's just important to get a reflection of the world at large, because I'm certainly guilty of this. I'm sure you guys probably are too. We run in our circles and we get the news that we get and we make our determinations based off that. It's easy to lose sight of the world at large. And for better or worse, I think algorithmically, just based off of movement and traffic and action, it's kind of important to see what other people care about, even if it is wrong.
You know, and I will say I care less about the trending box because it's not that prominent. And I think a lot of people understand precisely what you're saying, that it is the junk food of news.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people do get that. I don't want to underestimate people on that. Where I will take Facebook to task is it recently changed its algorithms so that fewer news stories show up in people's feeds, which hurts publications like Engadget, but also many of our competitors. So you'll see fewer Engadget stories in your feeds. If Facebook is going to exercise that kind of power, at least favor stuff that is reputable or correct.
Yeah.
You know?
So what you're saying is if they're going to get into the business of surfacing these stories in the first place in what is arguably not a purely organic way, they're basically accepting some responsibility to curate it.
It's I see Facebook sort of trying to play both sides. It's exercising this power that has a huge effect on the bottom line for media companies. It really does have far-reaching effects both for our bottom line and for what people see. But then Facebook wants to step back and say, "Oh, but this is just reflects what the people want. This is the will of the people. The people want to read about John Candy's ghost." I don't know where I got that.
Wow, that just got really dark.
Yeah, it's weird.
It does seem like Facebook is willing to step back and make it a reflection of what the people want when it's convenient for them, but also exercise power over what people are seeing when it's convenient for them.
So I think that is a super compelling argument, and actually one that I had not thought of at all. And man, Facebook can be kind of shitty, huh?
Yeah.
But I'm going to give this one to Chris.
Aw,
I do.
that's so sweet.
Yeah. Thanks, buddy.
It's not a pity one though, just so you know.
I
tried to go reach over. And
I thought that's what that was.
I couldn't reach. The table was very far. It was a lot farther than I thought it was. I went to go give you a little pat.
I choose to believe it's because you believe in my argument and not just because you wanted to touch this sweet, sweet sweater.
It is pretty sweet. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
it's good.
It's nice.
It is because I believe in your argument. I think this is betraying my own personal biases, but I do believe 100% in this idea that we've built ourselves these little bubbles that we travel in and kind of surround ourselves with people who agree with us, and forcefully breaking out of that and seeing the other side, even if it is, this surfacing and trending of
disgusting, toxic shit.
Yeah, not even just necessarily disgusting, toxic shit, but blatantly fake stuff is important because it's the sort of thing that makes you go, okay, so there's a whole portion of the population that is reading this and believes it to be true. And that's like problematic. But understanding that that's problematic and understanding that that is something that people are reading is important for your perception and understanding of the world.
This might be, to sort of piggyback off of your point, this might be just like another weird Velascoism. But I personally believe that if you're not like, if you don't sort of take in things in the world each day, and like if you're not at least a little bit scared by what's going on every day, like you're just not paying enough attention.
Yeah, I agree with that. Now that we've gone in a weird side direction.
I mean, like Dana took things dark with John Candy's ghost.
Yeah.
I'm just like laying in the grave on top of the coffin right now.
Just shoveling dirt on top.
Man, this is what happens when you take people who haven't maybe had enough sleep.